The Objective News Agency.
Yeah, this is Tim DeHay. I'm a producer here at The Objective. Hi, Kiki. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Fantastic, fantastic. So, thanks for agreeing to an interview.
No problem.
Yeah. So, are we live on your Facebook now?
Yes, you are.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I saw the interview yesterday on Instagram, and it was viral, actually. And I was like, wow, like a sister that's on code and that speaks for Black issues in particular. And I did some research. I'm like, I have to speak with this woman. I have to. It's not every day that you see that kind of stuff, and especially with what's happening right now and down in the States. It was just fantastic for me to hear that. So I just wanted to start off by saying that it's a pleasure to be interviewed right now.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So before we just get started, just to let you know, we're a Black news agency here in Nova Scotia. We do news across Canada and the United States and the world, actually. We've done this because we've seen how mainstream media portrays our communities, and it's not objective, and they're not really telling us exactly what's happening in the communities. So we're really on ground level, and we do stuff across the United States. And most of our viewers, actually, and most of our listeners and our readers are actually in the States.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of connection there. We're in the province of Nova Scotia. A lot of the Underground Railroad, part of it came here, so there's a lot of former foundational Black Americans that trace their lineage directly to the States, right from the 1700s to the 1800s and earlier. So there's a lot, and there's an expression here, whatever happens in the States happens here 2 years later. So That's why we had to speak with you, and so great. So just before we just go ahead here, just for those that may, because there's some viewers that may be listening to you for the first time, some that already know you, but just to recap yourself, where you're running for and what's your agenda.
Well, my name is Eritha Akile Cainion. I am born and raised in Saint Petersburg, Florida, and I'm running for District 7 City Council in this city on a platform of reparations and economic development to the Black community. And this is not the first time I've ran. I ran in 2017 and was the first reparations candidate in the electoral arena. Ever that the world has ever seen. We ran the first reparations campaign here in Saint Pete. So I'm here back to finish what we started. And, 2017, we gained a lot of momentum, a lot of support for the demand for reparations. And now it's being talked about in the, the national political, discussion. And so we think that Saint Pete has the ability to be the first reparations city in the world. And that we started the conversation, and now we got to finish it. So
reparations, there's a lot of talk about that now. They've had the reparations hearing, which a lot of people, including myself, felt that was almost a farce.
Yes.
What does reparations mean to you? Like, if you could put it, you could just give me a paragraph on it. What is reparations? What does it look like? What are the tangibles behind it?
Well, reparations is the return of, stolen, the value of stolen labor, and much more than labor, too. I mean, human and material resources were used to build the white world, and the city of St. Pete is no different. I mean, everything that it has come as a consequence of stealing it from the Black community. Our labor has been stolen to build the white community. It wasn't used to build our own neighborhoods. That the city of St. Pete has this booming tourist industry, but before it had that, we had to clear their swamps. Our children were used as gator bait here in the state. And, we had to clean, we were the people that worked in these white nursing homes, cleaning the bedpans of elderly white people, working in their restaurants, and working and cleaning their hotels. That's what we had to do in order to create, an economy for white people. And none of that has ever gone to benefit the Black community. And any time that our people has come together to create a means for ourselves, economic development within our own community that would benefit our people, they destroyed it. And that's seen in various places, even with like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Florida, and in St. Pete we had different specifics, like a baseball dome for the Tropicana Field baseball dome It's a stadium that rests on what used to be a black community. So there used to be 100 black businesses, 800 families, 300 homes that don't exist today. Those were completely pushed out, and there's actually a parking lot that's covering two black graveyards. And but there was a community there, there was an economy there, destroyed. We had a business district where there were businesses lining a whole strip in the city, black businesses that they destroyed by putting an interstate, drove it right through it, and then create a situation where white people are able to go from the downtown area, the really popular area, down to the beach. And so reparations is returning all that has been stolen from our community. It means a mass infusion of capital from the city's budget into the black community. And, so that's what makes it tangible, makes it real, that nobody has to ask where it's going to come from, who's going to get it, and it's going to go to the black community, and it's going to be used on our terms. But it's not welfare, it's not a handout, something that'll dry up in 2 months. It's something that's going to, be beneficial in the long term. And, and we want to return the Tropicana Field Dome into, what we call a reparations land trust. So, all the things that we're saying are really practical. It's not something that's really far out. And the only people that'll tell you it's far out is the white ruling class who don't want to pay reparations. So, I know that was a little more than a paragraph, but that's what it means. And a lot of people claim to be socialists, and and what that means to be socialist is uniting that the workers should own and control the value of their own labor. And that's what reparations is, the black community owning and controlling the value of our own labor. But first, that value has to be returned because it was stolen. So that's what reparations is, what it looks like, and some practical methods of implementing it in St. Pete.
I've been hearing the talk about reparations from Dr. Claude Anderson for years. You're explaining exactly what he's been saying. It's literally wealth. It starts with wealth, and then that wealth has to be returned, and certain things have to go along with that. So I think most black people support this. You're listening, like you're right now, like you see right now with the presidential debate, you're asking, some candidates are being asked what reparations is. I don't know what that is, or they're walking away from the camera, little things like that. It's coming a time now where they're not going to be able to get away from it.
Right.
And it's happening now, and you're doing it on a state level, and I think that's where you a little bit differ, but I think it's a great thing. It does have to happen on the state level for it to happen on the national level. That is absolutely fantastic. One thing I do have to ask, and it boggles my mind, I live in Nova Scotia. It's a foundational black Canadian province here. I said a lot of the free slaves came here, Underground Railroad, the Maroons from Jamaica, etc. A lot of the black politicians here and other places across North America, they do not speak for a black agenda.
Mm-hmm.
For some strange reason, they're afraid to talk about reparations. They're afraid to talk about black economics. Why do you think that is, and what makes you different?
Well, I mean, looking at specifically St. Pete, and it's same across the board. And the elections have never really been a place where the black community's interests have ever been really represented. Even though there's been black people that have ran for office, have won, there has nothing that's really changed about our material conditions. And of course that's because they're not running on a black agenda, as you mentioned. And in St. Pete, the elections here, just like in most places, if not in the entire country, the elections are rigged against black people, where they have a primary and a general election in a non-partisan race. So there's no Democrat, no Republican party. It's not supposed to matter. And they have a primary and a general, and that only happens in partisan elections. And a couple of things that does is, one, we have here is our city is separated into districts. So I'm running for District 7. And that means I'm running to represent District 7. There are 8 districts total within this city. And there's only one majority black district left in the entire city of Saint Petersburg. The majority population in the city are white people, and about 23% of black people in this city. And so we're represented majority in District 7. And what happens is, in the primary, the districts choose who they want to represent them. Then they send the 2 highest vote getters into the general election within that district. So what happens is, now the elections are opened up to the majority white population. So now the white community gets to determine what's going to happen for a majority black district. So it doesn't matter what black people voted for in District 7, because white people are going to be the determining factors. And so how does a black person win in that kind of setup? They have to talk about white people. They have to appeal to white people. And, of course, there's also the class interests within, the black community, because there are black people that represent, the white ruling class, and they use blackface in order to push the agenda of the white ruling class. And we experienced that in this city, where there's a black council member right now in District 7, but the only thing she's done is work for the white ruling class. She's only worked for the mayor. She's only defended all of his policies that have pushed out the black community that are doing it today. And so there's the class interest that we're fighting against, and the whole rigged election system, where if you want to win an election, you have to talk to white people. But of course, our approach is totally different, because you're talking about being an honest candidate, having any kind of integrity at all. You have to be able to address the oppression of the black community. Otherwise, everything you say, everything you want to do, from I want to create affordable housing to I want to sustain the environment, all the stuff becomes BS. Reparations informs every other position that you have. And if you're not trying to deal with overturning the oppression of the black community, everything you're saying is a lie. So, that's why I think, so these are the different factors into which why, many people don't run on a black agenda. But we're confident that an agenda that speaks to the black community's interests is one that can win, because even white people have to recognize their interests are tied with that of the black community. Because white people are beginning to experience what has been happening to the black community all along. And unless they want to, if they want a future here in this city too, they have to get on board. Or if not, they'll be pushed out, just as much as we are, but they're not experiencing the kind of vicious and brutality and the attacks that we are on a daily basis. But, at the end of the day, the capitalist ruling class doesn't give a damn about anybody, except for the people that benefit them, that are putting money in their pockets. So they don't even care about their own white population, So this is it.
I want to talk about, as much as you want to go into it, but the incumbent, Lisa Wheeler Bowman, she's there, the incumbent right now. And I was looking, doing some research on the demographics of your district in particular. It goes from the south, the 64th Street, down to the east to the 16th Street, and south to 54th Street. And you're running on the platform of make Southside black again.
Yep.
Gentrification, I've been to many cities across North America. I've seen gentrification firsthand. I'm living in the community in the north end of Halifax that has been completely gentrified. Black communities have literally been bulldozed over for development. Explain to me how gentrification happened there, how it's going, and who are the people, who are the culprits, who are the ones that are helping gentrification to happen?
Well, as I mentioned, like the dome, the Tropicana Field Dome, it sits on what used to be called the gas plant district. And there have been, other means. There's been even other, really staples in the black community that have been pushed out. Right now, there's a historic black community called Jordan Park that was actually developed by a black man named Elder Jordan, who gave the city that land to build dignified, affordable housing for black people. And he's actually saved the city from an economic crisis, from depression. He saved the city, loaned it some money. And, now that Jordan Park, that's been, homes to, many black residents throughout history, especially older black people, they're being pushed out of their homes today, and just completely discarded. And gentrification is a really violent process, because it's not just like, okay, well, I'm being priced out of my home and I'm just going to move somewhere else. It's a real vicious attack where, people's rents are going up. Black people spend, 54% of their annual income towards their rent alone. That's more than half of their income going to just rent. And, where the average 2-bedroom apartment here in this city costs $1,400, and that's higher than East New York. And they're building these luxury condos, where studio apartments today are going for $1,800. Studio apartment, as ain't got no bedroom in it, So this is the stuff that they're continuing to build. And this mayor and all the city council persons, they have opened the door for all these big developers from Miami, from New York, for all these real estate developers have come in. They're building all these luxury condos today. And like that, this is just an ongoing process, and they're moving into the deep south. They're moving further into places like District 7, and they're trying to take up as much land as they can. The city is 95% built out, so they have nowhere else to go. So now they got to gobble up everything within the black community, and of course it's vulnerable, because there's no viable economy here. We can't feed, clothe, and house ourselves. They're calling up elderly black people every day who, trying to get them to sell their homes. And when black people don't want to sell, then they call code violations and all this kind of stuff, these intimidation tactics to push black people out. And, there was something else I wanted to say to that, but yeah, it's just and then the police, this is what they do. Because, one, they justify the police by being here because of the increased crime and, all this kind of stuff. But what it really is, it serves as, the police function in our community as a military occupying force, and they help to facilitate this process of gentrification. So they're brutalizing black people, throwing black people in jail every single day, and, riding around here just looking for, just looking for the opportunity to attack black people. And they just spent $84 million, actually $100 million, on a new police station across the street from the current one, when people are out here, demanding affordable housing, economic development, all this kind of stuff. And of course, and they call it public safety. We need more money for the police for public safety, but the police ain't in the white community doing what they are to black people. So the police are for us. The money that they spend on the police are for us to police this community. And that's all a part of gentrification, and the fact that we don't have any businesses over here, the fact that we don't have an economy, and we're not able to provide for ourselves, we got to go outside of our community to work for white people. That's all a part of gentrification. There's no grocery stores in this community. There's nothing. There's no recreational nothing. Absolutely nothing in this community. And the culprits are the people like you mentioned, the incumbent, who has not been doing any of the work that we have been doing. The fight that we have had to be able to put this platform out in the world, because the media endorsed her, the police endorsed her, the big developers that are funding her campaign endorsed her, the city council people who are part of this process endorsed her. So she doesn't even have to come do the work that we're doing. She just expects to be able to walk up in there, win an election, and it's the arrogance of the white ruling class. But we're here to we're scaring the mess out of them, because now she's coming out of her shell to try to pretend to campaign to black people. And again, and to defend what this government has done. And obviously we're calling all of that out, and they can't expect to win an election the same way. They can't expect that big money's going to buy it this time, that we're going to be fighting out here. And that's what we've been doing, been building a social movement and bringing as many people as we possibly can, knocking on doors, calling people, distributing our own newspaper, out here on sound trucks, doing it old school, trying to get the word out. So
from the grassroots, I've seen it, and your campaign, it comes from the roots. A lot of the things that I've been doing a little bit of research the last few days on what's happening in Saint Petersburg. This is, to me, it's like ethnic cleansing. It's pretty much as I'm seeing what's happening. I know you don't have much time to decide that you got a campaign, but I do want to ask a few more questions if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. One of the things here that I'm looking at in terms of the incumbent that's there, what they're doing there, the gentrification, the building, you're saying 54% of someone's income is going to their rent. Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. And this is someone that has experience in real estate, that knows people in the trade. Is there some kind of community benefits agreement or some kind of contract that a certain amount of the development or the subcontracts must go to black employees, must go to black construction workers? That would be a way to 100% make sure that you're including the economy. Is anything like that happening now?
Well, it's funny that you should mention that, actually, because in a debate that we had on Tuesday, the incumbent mentioned that, because I'm talking about reparations, and she said, well, reparations is already happening, because what's in the works is, because the thing about the Tropicana Field Dome, the baseball team really wants to leave, and the city government has been begging on their knees for them to stay. And of course, we want them to go. And so in the event that the Rays do leave, which we're pushing for, the incumbent says that, the mayor has developed this plan, this community benefits agreements plan, where developers would come into this area, and they would be required to give 2% or something back to the community, or however that the whole thing works. And so but nothing like that happens today. 1 and 2, that's not what we want. you know, the fact of the matter is we want all 85 acres of land back to the black community in a reparations land trust so that we can own and control the development that happens on that site. Not anybody else. Not anybody else gets to make that decision. That's our land. That would destroy our community. And that, you know, anything like that, you know, that's nothing that's long lasting. And and for developers, you know, outside of this area, not particular to this area, one, we don't want any more of the big, like that the condos and the luxury apartments. We don't want any more of those because it's driving up the cost of rent for everybody in this city. So it's not enough for a community benefits agreement. It needs to be a situation where the developers are paying, you know, a tax, you know, back to the city. They're investing in this city. We do want that to happen, but it can't be, you know, big developers who are coming in to build a luxury condo. That cannot be what happens. And that, you know, that there are people right in this community that can develop their own community, that can develop the land itself, that have the ideas for businesses where we can develop genuine units of affordable housing, where we can decrease the cost of, decrease the pressure on the entire housing market. It exists right here. It doesn't have to come from outside investors or anything like that. It's right in this community. And, you know, so it's not enough for a luxury condo apartment builder to come here and say, okay, well, we're going to give 2% back to the community. But you know, as a result of me building this luxury apartment, I'm still going to, you know, increase the cost of housing for everyone. It's not enough. We want the development of those kind of projects to completely come to a halt. We need to focus on what the people need in this city. That's, you know, the ability to feed, clothe, and house themselves. And that comes with reparations and economic development. That's what the demand is.
100%. I even just looking a bit more about Saint Petersburg and seeing that, I see how the police are being used. There was a riot back there in the mid-90s. The police are being used to help gentrify. From what I'm hearing, a lot of people are just getting tickets for not like doing like basic things like hypothetically not cutting their grass or using that. They're doing anything that they can to throw people in jail. And then afterwards, when we had a certain, I don't know if it's called a misdemeanor there or what have you, you cannot be off the voting rolls. I seen the interview that you did with Channel 8. You brought up all the things that you've been speaking about now. You brought up reparations. You brought up black economics. You brought up gentrification. You brought up all of these things. And then the reporter, as what they do here, all over actually, they flipped it and they remixed it and they brought up a total side issue, LGBT issue. And you're like, this is not what we're talking about. If you don't mind like getting a bit more into that, and like, does that happen often there? And do a lot of the politicians get sidetracked? Is that like a formula the media uses to get away from the issues that concern black people?
Well, it was really funny how that interview, because one, like I mentioned, the media will not cover these campaigns. And they barely will even talk about the election that's happening, period. Because, again, they just expect this incumbent to walk in there and they don't want people to vote. They just want the same old people that do it all the time, that they know they can, you know, to get to vote in their favor. But they don't want the whole city to be involved in this election, to talk about the issues that matter. So they're not even reporting on this election. And because if they did, then they would have to talk about the reparations candidates. They don't want to talk about that. So the media has completely whited us out. They will not report on us. And the only time that they want to report on anyone is this non-factor candidate hasn't raised any money, and, you know, he just spews from the mouth on Facebook, but he's not actually campaigning. And that's the person you want to make your cover story, you know, in the media in this city. That's what you want to talk about, you know, while people are out here, you know, saying that we want affordable housing, we don't have no jobs, and the police are brutalizing us on a daily basis. That's what you want to talk about, this person who doesn't actually implement any kind of policy and has no chance in hell in winning the election? And that's what you want to put forward? And of course it is to divert people's attention away from the real issues, because nobody is talking about that's what they want people to now discuss. Because now there's a problem with the black community and LGBTQ people, and this is the fight. That's not what anybody's talking about. And the reality is, you put this guy on the front cover, and we have a positive vision for the future we're talking about, which is reparations. And that should be what's being blasted out to everyone. Look at this alternative to the status quo. We don't have to have the same thing anymore. That's what you could have on your front cover. They will not give us any media time, and that's what they decided to do. So they made the bad decision of asking me to comment on the situation. And, you know, that's how we managed to do this interview. They wanted my position on this guy's comments this is what they wanted to run in their newspaper. And, you know, we just refuse to talk about this, because this is not what I'm hearing when I go door to door. I'm, you know, stopping in this interview right now from being door to door, and I'm hearing what people are saying and who they got a gripe with. And it's not even with this guy. Nobody would even have known this guy or his offensive comments if they wouldn't have put it out there. And that is a tactic that they use all the time. In the last election, you know, they made a big deal out of, you know, young black teens and car theft, and it's a car theft epidemic, and that's what they tried to make this election about. So they take the onus off of the government that's oppressing the black community, and now everybody is, you know, in a tiff about the car thefts that are happening in the city. And that's not it. And then they slander the black community and all these kinds of things, and now everybody's problem is with my community, who doesn't oppress anyone, who has no power, no political or economic power in the city. And the fact of the matter is, the guy they quoted and the guy that said such bad things about the LGBTQ community is not the one oppressing the LGBTQ community. It's the people who are in office today. They fly the LGBT flag over City Hall, but in the same breath, they're pushing out all black people. All black trans, all black bisexuals, homosexuals, any black person they're pushing out of the city today. They don't give a damn about LGBTQ people. You know, so that's the fight that we're up against. And the government is the one responsible for putting in policies that are oppressing the people today. And, you know, but that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to create this false discussion, and we won't let them. We will not let them do that. This is what this election is about. And if that's not what you want to talk about, we will talk about it, and we will get the word out. So that's how that even happened. And yeah, it is a method that they use very often.
So you're in a state, a plethora of foundational Black American descendants of slaves there, an original Black Wall Street. You're fighting for reparations. You're fighting for Black economic development. You're fighting for Black empowerment and against anti-Black racism and white supremacy. How can those in your district and those who are outside go to support your campaign to push the agenda that you're going to push? Because eventually, if it's in Florida, it's going to happen in Georgia, it's going to happen in North Carolina, it's going to move all the way up all across. Yep. How do we help you?
Well, everyone in this district who has the ability to needs to come out in droves to vote August 27th. And, you know, anybody in the city that has the ability to vote need to vote in the general election in November. And for everybody who's not able to vote in this city, who want to support these campaigns, are very much able to do so. This is not a big money campaign. We don't have the big developers or the corporations in our back pocket. You know, we have the power of the people, which means, you know, working people who donate, you know, from $1 to $5 as much as they possibly can. And you can contribute, you know, up to $1,000. That's the cap that they put in the during the elections. You know, so if you can, you know, donate at voteakile.com. You can spread the word on social media pages. Talk about this, because it's much bigger than the city. As you mentioned, we started here, but we begin to multiply this tenfold across the country. And for people who are looking to do something for the summer, from now until November, because we intend to win the primary and go into the general election, come to Saint Pete. Come volunteer, boots on the ground. Let's make this happen. And you know, I'm dead serious. We need everybody that wants to be a part of this movement to be here. And you know, anybody in St. Pete who can't vote, and you know, or look, either get registered if you can. If you can't, because you know the state took your rights away, and they won't give them back, despite the fact that the people had voted to restore felons' rights. If you can't do that, join this people's movement. Join this social movement, because everybody can be a part of it. No one is left out of this thing. Everybody has a stake in fighting for what it is that I'm talking about. So we want everybody to be a part of this movement. And wherever you are, you can donate, spread the word, and come to St. Pete. Let's make this happen.
100. Last few things. I New Black Media, not myself, but other members of other voices of New Black Media, have went over to Ferguson after the Ferguson uprising, and they actually broke down the amount of money that the city council got to it. It's not much money. You could have taken over the whole city council for about $15,000, $20,000. So what you're asking for, and a little saying, you know, come with this, come with that, that's not much at all. Everyone puts a little bit of something, and then afterwards you throw into the pot, and you go from there, boots on the ground, grassroots.
Yep.
Two last things. One thing I wanted to say, is there a message that you can tell, just for young Black people in general, and the young Black politicians that are in politics that are afraid, for whatever reason, to do the things that you're doing? what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, you have to look at what's happening in the world and see that everywhere around the world, people are rising up every single day, and they're tired of the same old thing. And that has to be the message that you listen to. That has to be the indicator. And then go out into the community and listen to what people are saying. And, because the ruling class will tell you that people aren't ready for this, that change takes time, all of this garbage to prevent you from fighting for what really needs to happen. Because if you put your ear to the ground, you will hear where people are. And you have to build a social movement, because you're not going to be able to do anything as an individual. This government in the city of St. Pete is not going to hand over what it is that I'm talking about. It's going to come as a consequence of the people rising up and fighting for it. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what this movement is trying to do. You can't go out there and do it alone. So if you're afraid, you got to get 10 more people who believe in you, 20 more people who believe in you, an entire community, a movement to back you, so you don't have to be out there thinking that you're facing them alone. That's what you got to do. You got to go out there. You got to knock on some doors. You got to talk to people. And you have to, you got to be honest, and you have to do the right thing, and you can't be bought. You can't let these people buy you. You have to adopt a platform that speaks to the interests of the black community, and then build a movement. And you don't got to be afraid, because the power of the people is more overwhelming than any amount of money that these people got. And that's what I would tell these people. It's the time to stop being afraid is now.
Sister, you're doing a thing. You're blowing my mind. It's I live in a place where I can honestly say I see a lot of black political cowardice. You're standing here, you're on the front lines, you're a soldier in the army for us, and we thank you. And I'm watching right now on Facebook all the hearts that are going up. Everyone's feeling it, and it's something that you cannot feel. Like it's absolutely impossible not to. You know what I mean? So thank you so much. I'll let you have the last word before we get off here.
Well, I just really want to appreciate you. And I'm very excited that this message has been able to reach Nova Scotia and, Canada and, various places, because it's just showing what it is that we've always known all along. This is much bigger than Saint Petersburg, that we're waging this struggle for black people everywhere. And, we know that the power of the people is tremendous, and the only way you can experience it is by being out here amongst the people. And, that's what we're doing. We're going to win this. I am the most confident I've ever been in my life that we are going to win this election, and that we're going to have a movement that continues to push forward the demands of what we're talking about. That St. Pete is going to make history. We're going to be the first reparations city in the world, and we're going to inspire many more cities, many more places to take this stance. And the time is now. Unity through reparations. And let's make the South Side black again in the city of St. Pete. Vote Akile. And for all those out there who want to support, go to voteakile.com/donate. Thank you.
Better myself. Right. Thanks a lot. We'll keep in touch. So we're going to be monitoring your elections. People even from Chicago sharing all your stuff right now. All over. I'm just seeing it right now. People you spark something. You spark something in a lot of people. I'm seeing it. The youth are up, we're live, and we're ready to go. And help us lead the way. We have an expression here. It's either you lead, follow, or get out the way. You're one of the leaders. Keep pushing through, man. Mad respect, mad love, and we'll keep in touch with your campaign. And everyone go to the website, donate $1, $2, $3, $5. If you're in the area, go donate some time. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
All right, sister.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, that was the interview. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, all the ways that you can support have been laid out. But we're about to go back out here and do some door-to-door, knock on some doors, get some yes votes, and tell people about this platform, this campaign. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Grant, cameraman, back here. So, unity through reparations, and make the South Side
black again.
All right. Hooroo.